NewGenGamers.com.
Doing kind of a research project to look at using MMOs as a kind of a motivational component for creating learning environments. The idea is, people are into games, they play games a lot, they get addicted to games. It's very motivational, obviously, right? So can you integrate educational content in there, not screw it up so that it's a boring game? And the dangerous thing you do, all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, this is just broccoli with chocolate on it. But can we do something like that and create a game environment that actually motivates people to learn, put the learning and contents in there, and still have a fun game, but still have something that's educational?
This is something we've been talking about because there is a lot of opportunity to use gaming in education, and I don't think anyone's really harnessed this or taken advantage of it because it's a reward system the way education is, where you need to accomplish a goal.
You level up your character, you go to first grade, second grade, third grade, you have learning objectives in the game, you have other kinds of objectives, you have a skill tree in World of Warcraft, you have a series of things you need to learn. When you're learning physics, you need to learn vectors, and then you learn vector addition, and then you learn these certain sequences like that. All these parallels like that. So what we want to do is take advantage of some of those same ideas and those overlaps. I'm actually going to cheat. This is like my outside of the moon surface running around my little character here. We kind of went for this retro space theme here. Kind of this, think about the early 50s and 60s when there were all this old space art of, mankind on the moon in the future, and, rockets with big fins on them and things like that. So we kind of went with that theme just for fun. It's a lot easier to work with. It's a lot more fun from an art point of view. It makes it a more fun game.
Now, how do you plan on applying this to education? What exactly would you do to advance your character?
What we're doing in this is we do a little cheat and go send myself inside the dome here. I'll just run it. Take me a second. We're actually only concentrating in this case on physics concepts for college freshmen, and that's more specifically because there's a specific research objective for the project to say we need to be able to measure, take this, put it in the classroom, measure a group of students. Do they learn any more or any less than a group of students who doesn't actually go through the game? Is there an impact? It's not so much that we want to produce a game to teach because we want to be teaching. It's more like we want to produce a game that we can see if it's actually effective.
So this would be similar to a homework assignment, like you'd be able to take this home and play
Exactly. It's not replacing your classroom, your textbook, your teacher. It's more of a supplemental thing that says this goes along with it. So one of the things we do is we're actually integrating the learning content into mini games that are completely separate, and they're actually written in Flash. And here's an example. You've got these little robots. They're confused robots. They're having problems traveling on their little supply paths they're supposed to be traveling. So you need to reprogram them. So you go up to, you find a robot, you pick it, and activate the simulation of your environment, this reprogramming the robot. Now, here's something we're doing is we're actually creating our learning content though as separate Flash games. Right? So what it does is at this point I've just launched a Flash game in a separate web browser, and I can actually play the Flash game, which it has its little descriptions of what you're learning and things you need to do. So here's this little Flash game that is a very focused little piece of learning that you need to do. Very focused little thing. In this case, it's basically saying you need to go 1,600 meters and you need to do it in this amount of time. And so how fast can your robot go to reach it in 10 seconds or whatever? And you're setting a little slider and you're setting your little robot along. So here's this nice little finite piece of learning that we can give somebody to learn. We can really concentrate on making it just perfect, and that it does its job, and it meets the objectives of the teaching. And there's no interruptions. You're not distracted. You don't have more than one player running around in there.
Yeah.
And it's which are advantages in an MMO, but almost distractions in this learning environment.
Yeah.
We can measure the success or failure of a student in here. We can also replace it. We can say, what happens if we just replace this with a multiple test, true-false test, a boring multiple choice test? What if we just give them a boring PowerPoint that says, here are the facts for what you must learn?
Yeah.
Is it any more or less effective? What if we just give one group of students only the PowerPoints, or only the mini games to play, and they don't get the MMO? Do they learn any more or less than the group that does it in the MMO context, or not?
To do this, are you going to do it similar to like a psychology project where you're going to have people apply to go in and do this?
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where you have different classrooms. This group of people play the MMO version, maybe with the boring PowerPoint version. This group plays only the mini games.
And see who actually learns more effectively
right.
through it. Which way is most
or
effective?
admittedly not. I mean, admittedly, one of the things you have to be open to, right, is the fact that maybe no impact,
right?
Or no negative. Maybe the people in the MMO have too much fun. They spend all their time playing, and they don't. You know, you got to be open to that. Right?
Yeah.
The other application is then to take things like what if we in the MMO space allow the player to customize the character a lot. You know, the typical World of Warcraft thing where you can see somebody else's level, you can change or modify yourself. Oh, that guy's got those cool helmet on or whatever. What if in this we let people say, oh yeah, you can pick out your spacesuit or whatever. Versus what if we don't? How big of an impact is that? And really I think what you're doing is you're sliding it towards becoming a bad game.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're making the education is going to start to dominate. And at that point, it's going to become a bad game. It's not a very good motivator.
So, one thing are you guys thinking about looking at in motivation? Would it be as you progress, if you get, you know, the good outcomes on your things, you get better equipment to put on?
Exactly. Like we have a series of little quests in development. You know, it's basically a questing type system, right? And you can do quest, chain quests or quest trees. You know, you do this, and then once you've done that, now it allows you to do this, allows you to do this. And that's the same idea as like learning. You know, you learn, you're doing math, you learn addition and subtraction, you learn multiplication, then you start to learn, more advanced math, you get into algebra, you get into calculus. It's the same concept as a quest tree almost in the World of Warcraft. So what we may do is have a sequence that says, once you pass several of these little projects like this, you actually get like a little pet robot, for example, that follows you around. And then at some point, it's like, oh, well, if you complete this, you get this little add-on for your robot that allows it to carry more. You can carry gear for you or something.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we can expose all this stuff to the player, so they know what they have to do to get the robot. It's not like this hidden thing, which is what World of Warcraft does. You look in your skill tree, I want to get that, I need to do this, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll just expose that. We won't call it education, and we won't necessarily call it learning objectives and things like that, but nonetheless it's there, and so I'm really motivated to go here if this reward is good.
That is really
it all runs off a reward system, and I think that's something that can really be taken advantage of in education where like you're saying, if you give small upgrades, that gives you that motivation to continue on and to continue striving to achieve new things, and there's no reason that can't be applied to education.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's almost like, a good teacher is just a motivational it's a motivational tool for the content. Not just that, but you don't want to oversimplify what a teacher does. And so we don't see this as any kind of we can ditch classrooms and teachers and textbooks for something like this.
It's just another avenue.
It's an avenue, and it's ideally, imagine if you could integrate this with a textbook, where when you went to solve a problem, there was this little hint at the bottom that said, "You need help with this? Page 38 in the textbook." Right?
Yeah.
And it's like almost like the textbook becomes the cheat guide.
Yeah.
It's the cheat guide for the game.
It'd be your strategy guide for the game.
Exactly.
Now this is built on the multiverse technology. Now, what do you think of using that? Has that been easy for you guys?
I've been actually working with them as an early adopter now for quite some time in the early pre-release, beta program, and it's been fantastic. A couple things. Part of it is, we're not out to create a commercial product here, so we don't have like a budget to go license a nice big game engine. So their business model, excellent.
Yeah.
Second part of it is, they have been very, very open to talking with us about the project and working with us and listening to us, and even a couple things, the features they've added to the engine, because we've said, this would be really useful, we can do this. So next thing you know, it shows up, right? And even though they know we're not like some big, we're not money, right?
Yeah.
They've been very open to work with us. Honestly, I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of the other companies here in the past, and they were all, that's a really neat thing you want to do, but, there's this but, ... And kind of the wording is, you don't have any money, and so we don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And these guys aren't like that.
Right.
The people part of the company, huge positive.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tim Holt, and hopefully we'll see more of this in the future. And kids, you might be learning through this someday, so keep an eye out for stuff like this and tell your teachers that you'd like to see more of it, because I think there's definitely an opening for this type of stuff. And this is Retro Labs. So keep an eye on them. This might be how you learn in the future. Thank you.